Happy New everybody, and 2 days away from where 2025 kicks in. I think it's a year that all of us are looking forward to, especially in this cannabis industry. New opportunities, new beginnings. But we also got to look back at the year that was had. Tonight, here at the TDR Traded Black podcast, we're going to break down once again the top 10 developments for 2024. Who are they? What were they? What comes to mind? We're going to break it all down. Let us know if you agree. Let us know if you disagree by leaving some comments below. So let's get into it. This is the TDR Traded Black Top 10 Developments for 2024. With that, let's welcome in Anthony Varrell. Happy holidays. How was Christmas?
It was good. It was good. It's my wife's birthday, so it's always a eventful holiday
Christmas
for
Day?
me. Christmas Day. Yeah,
She's a Christmas
on
baby.
the 25th. Yep. So it's always good, and then I'm excited to dive in and run through the top 10. We get to relive some of the wins and relive some of the nightmares, and kind of wrap this thing up and go into 2025.
You know what we should have done was brought up the top 10 developments for 2023 and gave a comparison, but that was with you and I and our old buddy Benjamin Smith, who moved on, but he's on to some great new opportunities. But it'd be cool to maybe we'll bring up some of those top 10 moments for 2023 and do some comparisons. But this is 2024 top 10 developments. We're also going to bring in not a new, but I would say a new friend, Guap. Good to see you. Happy New Year, my friend. 2025, 48 hours away.
Yes, live long and prosper, everyone. It's good to be surrounded by friends and family, and look back as we look forward.
Well said. If you want to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. So with that, let's look back at the top 10 developments and moments for 2024. Let's begin. All right. Beginning at number 10, Ohio Rec goes live back in August. Anthony, I'll begin with you. Ohio, as I said, they went live back on August 6th for adult use cannabis. This is one of the key growth states in the country for the industry, and why it really becomes or comes in at number 10 for the TDR Traded Black biggest moments in 2024. This was a big announcement for the overall space back in August, right?
Yeah, this was a big win. Ohio going rec, or Ohio setting the tone to go rec, because they still haven't actually implemented the rules. And we're in December. They were supposed to be implemented in September, and now we're looking at Q1 2025. But yes, this was seen as transformational for the industry. This is a big red state. Bringing in recreational cannabis was a win, and something that was seen as shifting the political calculus, and it's yet to be determined if that will change what's going on in Pennsylvania, as we could be looking at adult use there. That was very much so around this thesis. But yeah, it's nice to see Ohio, even though it has not lived up to the expectations of having that meteoric growth out of the gate. We'll see what happens in 2025 with the full rules and regs coming online, and that market truly maturing into an adult use state versus a loose medical state as it is currently.
You got to start somewhere, and August 6th was that start. So yes, one of the key reasons why people will be looking for a number of things related to this space and how it matures in 2025. So again, number 10, Ohio goes live with rec back in August of 2024. All right, now time for number 9. Green Thumb buys Agrify back on November 5th. That comes in at number 9, and why not? As much as we talk about GTI, Guap buying the stock, Agrify stock has been up over 800% since that announcement. Pretty crazy to say the least. But that comes in at number 9.
Yeah, I mean, more of a fascinating case study in, how to set up a NASDAQ shell than anything. I mean, it's interesting to see Green Thumb get involved, essentially purchase a NASDAQ listed ticker, completely pivot, put Ben in charge, and start talking about hemp-derived beverages known as senoritas, which, great name, obviously, I love it. So, it's more of a fascinating thing to the Yucatans and the Anthonys of the world in terms of how this is structured and what this could lead to. There's a few different ways this could go, but it's one of those really interesting, maybe we see more of this kind of stories.
Yeah. Well, I think honorable mention too is GTI partnering up with Barstool, and I think that was one of the main reasons for this acquisition and why it makes sense. And look no further, as I said before, with Spit and Chiclets and their Pink Whitney brand and what it did for that brand itself. And no, I don't drink it, and I'm sure you guys don't either, but I know a lot of females that do. But it'll be interesting to see if this happens with this particular product. But good thinking and strategy by Mr. Ben Kohler, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, now time for number 8 on the TDR Traded Black biggest moments for 2024, and it is New York hits $1 billion run rate. And this is welcoming news, Anthony, to say the least. The great state of New York that many people want to believe as to where this market could go. But when this was announced back in early part of December, again, welcoming news for the industry.
Yeah, it is. New York was seen as one of the paramount markets for the United States. It still is obviously one of the paramount markets for the United States as it relates to legal cannabis. Could be the largest market on the East Coast, with adult use being years away in Florida. It's really good to see. It means that not only is the cannabis industry maturing in New York from a retail perspective, and you're starting to see a higher density and concentration of legal retail in the state of New York, but you're also seeing Operation you're also seeing the Padlock. You're also seeing Operation Padlock working in real time, that they are closing illegal dispensaries. And that is in turn boosting the growth in this market. I think it's going to be a big story in 2025. A lot of the MSOs are seeing it as a key wholesale market for them, with the converting of their medical to adult use to be determined. We also should get some clarity around the lawsuit that's taking place in regards to the onerous fee that's implied with the adult use conversion of the dispensaries. So this was a big 2024 story. I think it's going to be a bigger 2025 story, and we'll be looking to see how it transforms in the new year.
Pennsylvania gets a lot of news for catalyst moments for the industry heading into 2025, but I think this is right there with it, and especially if it continues to strive towards what we all hope it does. Guap, I saw you pointing up your finger.
Yeah. This is big because I did not have much hope for this market when I remember the first legal dispensary opened and there were 1,000 illicit shops already open. It was a 1 to 1,000 ratio when this first, so obviously stumbled out of the gates. But I was actually in New York City when I was trying to go to some of these illicit dispensaries. I was able to get into about half. They were all sort of half open. You had to knock to get in, and the other half were already had notices posted and they were locked up. So that's only continued. I'm sure that's helping quite a bit, and because it was really hard to find a list and find the good actors amongst the sea of bad there.
Yeah. New York, it's the Big Apple, the big opportunity, right? All right, now time for number 7 as we shift our attention overseas, and it was back on April 1st. No, not April Fools, but Germany announces Pillar 1. It goes live, and that was a big moment, Guap, to say the least, and really a lot of companies, especially Canadian LPs, have a large focus on this German market, but that comes in at number 7, and why not?
Yeah, Guten Tag, Germany. That was huge, because this is it's 80 million people. That's twice the size of California. They are decriminalizing, essentially descheduling. They're opening up social clubs for now, and they're just starting with some rec pilot programs. We're starting to get some rumblings that people are applying for those. So it's just getting started, but there's some companies that are already making plans and already are shipping there and already on the ground there. So it's a great market, and it will be for quite some time moving forward.
Well, let's hope it stays that way. No, I know a new administration coming in next year, a lot of unknowns pertaining to the space, but look, Pillar 1 was announced back in, like I said, in April, and it's why it comes in on one of our biggest moments of the year. Here, top 10 developments on the TDR Traded Black podcast.
And I think the EU looks to Germany, so, how this all works out with Germany, you're going to start seeing way more states bordering it or in the EU that are going to follow suit with maybe a similar approach.
Good point. All right, now time number 6. And coming in at number 6, Anthony, Biden fails to deliver, meaning no cannabis reform has been implemented under his administration. However, there has been progress, but to this point, as of the end of 2024, nothing is official.
Yeah, so we're leaving 2024 without Biden fulfilling any of his promises as it relates to the cannabis industry. He did initiate the rescheduling process, so I mean, I don't want to sit here and just fleece him completely. He did instruct Secretary Becerra to give the HHS report and get that done so it can go to the DEA. Those were big steps. However, the timing could have been better. He could have initiated this a year ago easily and not used it as a political carrot for the presidential campaign that he would then bow out from. So, I mean, all things considered, he didn't follow through with anything that he said he was going to. I also don't want to say that he didn't do anything, because he did put us in pole position to have rescheduling take place in 2025 when the Trump administration comes into play. But if you were to go down the list and look at the 6 points that he made when he did take office back in 2020, as it relates to any of his campaign promises and cannabis reform, he didn't get anything done.
Yeah. Well, going back to April, that State of the Union address where he mentioned cannabis, that was welcome to like news for a lot of people in the space. But how much has this industry changed over 8 months? Enough of the announcements. It's like we've got to get some sort of legislation implemented, which is where a lot of investors obviously
we needed
very frustrated.
We needed that mentioned in April of 2022, not April of 2024.
Yep.
And then he could have actually got meaningful reform and things done that he actually would have wanted to get done, instead of, hey, put me back in 2024 and I will get this finished, which no one believed him anyway.
A common theme for this industry is that when it gets mentioned, it's during an election year.
Yeah.
And that is just not going to ride any longer. But let's hope, obviously. Go ahead, Guap.
I'm going to give him a strong C-. The first one was no one should be in jail for marijuana use. I don't know if those pardons really did the job there. Decriminalize recreational marijuana use and automatically expunge prior convictions. Still waiting on that one, buddy. Legalize medical marijuana. Looks like Trump might get that done. Allow states to legalize recreational marijuana. That was already happening. Reschedule marijuana so researchers can study its health impacts. That's the thing we got to give them credit for initiating.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that neither of us have mentioned is they were using rescheduled in the past tense during the campaign trail. So that was
very good point.
That even adds insult to injury.
I think we dodged a bullet too with Kamala, because when Joe Rogan outlined some of the things that he could not talk about during her podcast, cannabis came up as number one. Something we've never brought up as well. What's the breakfast show or the radio show that Charlemagne hosts?
The Breakfast Club.
And I saw a clip actually recently where she was asked, Kamala, if she's ever smoked weed before. And she's like, yep. And I inhaled, and she started laughing. And I thought to myself, wow, to think of what she's done for this industry and lock people up, and to have that kind of response in a public forum. That's wild to me. Absolutely wild. I know that seems extreme.
What do you want her to say? Just no, absolutely not.
Don't do what you did. You've locked people up for decades, and then you're laughing about it. You can't do that.
So I get what you're saying.
We can't give a black and white answer to this right now, because you and I have not, been in a situation from a state official standpoint where we've locked people up for decades on a small possession of cannabis. I can't even comment on that. I can't even relate to that.
I get what you're saying, but I actually gave her brownie points in scenarios like that where she was being real. The other thing that she said on the Breakfast Club was about owning a gun. And she was like, yeah, anybody ever steps in my house, like, they're getting shot. I think that was actually proven to be false, but still, she was like being real. I like politicians when they let the guys
part
down,
I don't mind. Like,
whether they're being authentic or not.
No one should be in jail for smoking weed, guys.
No one should.
My point, the gun portion, I'm fine with. That's the human side. I like to see that as well. But in a situation like this, in a topic like this, you got to tread lightly and tread extremely lightly, knowing what your track record has shown, and then you're on a show basically laughing about it. Disconnect completely. But
That
we
is
are.
literally.
Are we
that
still
is
doing the top
literally-
10 or what are we doing?
Yeah, let's move on.
but that is the definition of U.S. politics. It's rules that apply to thee, not me. So I mean, that's just a small symptom of the overall problem.
Let's hope we get change.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Just pander and let's move on to the next one. Yeah.
Speaking of moving on, what are we at? Number 5. Let's now shift to number 5 on the top 10 TDR tradable block developments for 2024 concerning the cannabis industry. And coming in at number 5 is Matt Zorn's FOIA, which happened way back in January. So looking back at this, Guap, why was this important?
Yeah, this was significant because Matt Zorn, who has his On Drugs Substack, requested that we be able to actually read the 252 pages that the HHS put out. So we got word back in August of 23 that these 252 pages of evidence had put together, but we couldn't see it. So this was actually, an industry friend, Matt Zorn, putting in a Freedom of Information Act request, and it released January 11th, 12th is when we finally got to read it. And for anyone who's looking for something to do over the holidays, instead of just talking about the 250 pages, I suggest you read it. It's a little dense, but it makes a ironclad argument for why cannabis should be rescheduled and eventually descheduled, in my opinion. It's comparing it to alcohol. I don't think that's a coincidence. Alcohol is not scheduled. So this was huge. It wasn't so much the FOIA request that was big. It was more the fact that we finally had our hands on this document that the government put together, and it's going to be extremely important moving forward.
So if you're over the holidays, you want to read this, what do you recommend? Fireplace, robe, slippers?
I recommend you put it into ChatGPT and have it shred it down into its most poignant parts via summarization, and you'll probably get about a 10 to 15 page document that'll be able to save you a hell of a lot of time.
I'm with Shad. Print it out, frame it,
get your highlighters,
read it by the fire. Yeah, exactly.
Number 4. Let's now shift. And coming into TDR's Traded Black biggest moments was the OLC memo, Anthony, which was an alleged request to the OLC stemming from disagreements between the HHS and the DEA. That comes in at number 4 on the TDR Traded Black biggest moments for 2024.
Yeah, this was one of the linchpins in the process that really cemented the validity of it. The OLC is one of the highest regarded legal offices in the United States. An opinion from the OLC is basically the hammer and the nail as it relates to any issue that they're covering. This OLC memo came out. It was legitimized. It legitimized the two-step process the HHS used to validate the notion of rescheduling. This is going to continue to carry weight throughout the entire process. Judge Mulrooney laughed at CADCO when they said that they wanted to challenge potentially the OLC's opinion that they had issued. This is also one of the most important things to happen because this didn't need to happen. This was nice to have, and we did get it, which did cement the validation of the process that was used in the HHS. And this was actually my tweet that broke this was actually brought up as an example of potential ex parte communication with the DEA, which I was not in communication with the DEA. That tweet actually went out at the Benzinga conference.
It did
in Miami when we were at it, but it was funny to see it be reused in arguments against actually Shane Pennington and in their attempt to get the DEA, I think their motion to get the DEA barred from the ALJ hearing.
And as of today, 220,000 impressions that baby has got over the past 8 months. So that was probably the biggest tweet that you put out for the year, and why not? But you know what I love most about this is data and research. That's the most compelling part of this industry and how it can back it up. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but if there's certain things that you want to say, back it up. And this is where I think this industry positions itself more than anyone. But all right, now time for our top 3. And coming in at number 3, we go back to September, Guap. It involves the ALJ hearing. First reaction, I think many in the industry didn't want this to happen, but now the emotions have settled. we look at this and say this is the proper approach, doing it the right way. And it's welcome news, I think, for many in the space to get this ALJ hearing underway in January of 2025. But as I said, coming in at number 3 is the ALJ hearing that was announced back in September.
Yeah, I think you categorized it well there, Shag, because, December 2nd was the first more procedural hearing. You can check out marijuanarescheduling.com to read all the pre-hearings statements to get a preview of what we might see starting in January 21st when the government goes first, presenting in front of the judge. But yeah, this is significant because it's allowing, most importantly, it's allowing the people aggrieved, the interesting parties who are saying that Schedule 3 will hurt them in some way.
Yep.
It's allowing them to air their BS and get hopefully shut down by a very even-keeled, knowledgeable, take no BS kind of judge.
Yep. And if you haven't got a chance, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. I did a deep dive into Judge Mulrooney last week. So if you haven't gotten a chance, just a big background where he graduated, his experience working with administrative law, and what his views will be on this ALJ hearing, both from a supportive standpoint and from really contesting from some of the people that will be not for rescheduling cannabis. But if you haven't gotten a chance, make sure to check that on our playlist, which was released last week. All right, number 2, our final 2 big moments, Anthony. And coming in at number 2, which really was a backbreaker for this space this year, was going back on election night, and that was dated to amendment number 3. I thought I was actually going to say, when you put up 3 there, I thought we were at number 3 for a second there, Guap, but number 2 it is, and coming in at number 2 on TDR's Traded Black biggest moments for 2024, Amendment 3 does not pass on election night.
Yeah, this is big. This broke the growth narrative for the sector going into 2025. This delayed the growth of one of the largest markets in the country. This incinerated $140 million on one of the balance sheets of one of the most important businesses in the space. I blame this for a lot of the sentiment that's going on in the sector right now. You had companies that deployed CapEx and built out canopy in the state of Florida. You had companies that deployed CapEx and opened doors incrementally in the state of Florida. And that announcement stopped dead in its tracks. We'll see if in the coming years if Florida can get something done legislatively. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's probably going to be a 2028 story of potentially getting it back on the ballot again. But that's 2028. I mean, we've got 4 years to go, a solid 4 years as it relates to right now. I think that stunted a lot of the growth. I mean, analysts were talking about 9-figure sums being added to some of the top line numbers, some of the largest operators in the state. And it really did break sentiment.
It did.
It was, but it also was one of the most, I don't want to say most important, but one of the biggest things to happen to the industry, because we all thought on election night that this thing was going to pass. The polling data was all pointing to the contrary of it. Failing. We all thought this was going to pass. And I remember sitting at my desk on election night watching the numbers roll in, and as soon as it was at like 15% reported, and I think it was at like 54% yes,
not good.
I was just sitting here stuck. I was like, this thing is not going to pass. And this is going to be,
especially when you saw some of the counties that had already come in with the early voting, and I was like, oh
yeah,
this is
one of the only counties was Broward, where I live, that actually carried it with an over.
What was the one county that you actually said would not vote in favor? Was it Polk County?
Polk, which is in the middle of the state, and it wound up going in favor. Yes.
But then again, it was the threshold that didn't meet the 60%, but that was a common theme. But the part that was more frustrating more than anything is Governor DeSantis the following day saying the people of Florida have spoken when 58% voted in favor for it. But there's another example of politics in America today. And
it was him rubbing salt in the wound.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing. But you think that's the route that's going to still happen, that this is going to be on the ballot again, where Floridians will have a chance to vote? You don't think this becomes more of, what's the proper term? It becomes legislation.
Get done legislatively?
Yeah.
I would hope so, but you never know in Florida.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I don't see it happening.
All right.
I've never seen such a, open example of sort of how politics is really how dirty politics works until I saw that disinformation campaign. I mean, they were going from everything from home grow to public safety. It didn't matter what myth or misquoted stat they could come up with. They were throwing everything at this. That and the turnout, I think it did finally tip the scales. But you got to give credit to Kim and the team there for being in the arena and really throwing everything they had at this. You can talk about maybe what they could have done differently, but that's, Monday morning quarterbacking, as they say, right? Like, she was the one taking the risk. She did stand to gain, and it's a shame it didn't happen. And I hope DeSantis enjoys his, Delta 8 and THC 0 vape pens from here on out, because he's a big home grow advocate.
Here's the big takeaway. What's happened has happened. It's what are you going to do now? And I think that's what people want to know heading into 2025. So we're going to find out one way or another. All right, drum roll. Time for the biggest moment in our views here at TDR's Trade to Black and what we think was the biggest announcement, development over 2024 in the cannabis space. And it involves the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump, and his endorsement of Amendment 3 prior to election night. This was huge because a lot of people were like, what is his stance on the cannabis space, Anthony? But this was welcome news, and hopefully it segues into 2025, regardless of the amendment passing or not, right?
Yeah, this was big. I mean, this was a statement about his thought process on cannabis. It was very 360 in the way that it actually the way that it portrayed his messaging on banking, states' rights, Amendment 3. No one should be in jail for smoking weed. It was a very strong statement. It was a very thoughtful statement. Yep. But I also want to allude to that it was his only statement that we've heard on cannabis since then, publicly. So it's yet to be determined what they're actually going to do as it relates to cannabis. I think Brian Lanza and Big Mike had a very good sit down as it relates to, let's say, some inside information into what's going on in the administration. But yeah, this was big. I mean, we had both candidates talking about cannabis going into the 2024 presidential election, and Donald Trump put out a very well-educated, thoughtful statement on the issue. But let's see what we get as far as follow-through goes, which I do believe we're going to see follow-through in 2025.
There you go. Let us know your comments, feedback. Guap, you want to add anything?
I don't want to read it in a Donald Trump impersonation, because that I would butcher it. But as everyone knows, I was and will be again the most respected law and order president in the U.S. history. We will take our streets back by being tough and smart on violent and all other types of crime. In Florida, like so many other states that have given their approval, personal amounts of marijuana will be legalized for adults with Amendment 3. Whether people like it or not, this will happen through the approval of the voters and done correctly. We'll make America safe again. But he did tweet previously his support for safe banking, as well as leaving recreational up to the states. I mean, this was in terms of being industry friendly. I could not have written a better tweet in terms of how comprehensive it was, in terms of what the industry would like to see. Politicians have said a lot of things about cannabis, but yeah, I'm hopeful in 2025 with some of the people he surrounded himself with. As I've said, I'm bullish because of the alignment and the people that are in his ear talking about cannabis. And the Democrats honestly put it on a silver platter for them to take the issue. This is coming from an independent voter who didn't vote for Trump. I'm just reading the tea here.
What we need to do, this industry, is change the word football and put in cannabis, and just play that whole video of Al Pacino with that victory sort of speech, or that motivational speech in the locker room.
The man in the arena.
On your way. That's just what we need. What is going to happen? What are you going to do now? Let's see what 2025 rolls in. All right. One last thing I'm going to say. Okay, if we're having this conversation 12 months from now, bull predictions, I'll start first. There's a new prime minister in Canada. Rescheduling is announced. And proper banking is not official but it's being publicly discussed by the Trump administration. Those are my 3 bold predictions in 12 months from now. What do you think, Anthony?
Rescheduling final ruling is done in 2025.
Okay. Guap.
All our dreams come true.
Hope you have good dreams.
Well, these kinds of dreams.
All right. My favorite comment on Twitter this past year is when we went to Washington, and somebody commented about how Anthony looked like the CEO of Paul Mitchell. I thought that was probably the best comment that
was a
came
good
across.
comment.
Anything else come to mind, gents? If not, listen, great job this year. Let's keep on growing. Appreciate all of our viewers logging on every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and checking out all of our videos outside of those days. But it's been a big year of growth here at TDR, and we've established ourselves as the best business podcast in the cannabis space. We just need some reform to grow this exponentially now. But great job, gents, on the year. Happy New Year. Anything planned for New Year's Eve for either one of you?
Nothing.
Just chilling with mom.
0.
Right?
Well, no, my parents are in Colorado.
What I mean is mom is your wife, because she's about to be mom.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Congrats on that.
Congrats, my friend.
Honorary mention, biggest moment of...
You are in the home stretch.
Yep. Got 6 weeks to go.
Yeah. And then once that happens, you'll be attending...
Pack your bags.
Club Bed featuring DJ Pillow and Sheets. That'll be your lifestyle on the weekends for sure.
I do that now.
Yeah, so. Sure. This guy, man, when we're on the road, crashes within like 3 minutes. He's out. Guap, how about you, my friend? What's in store for you New Year's Eve? Anything planned?
Nothing crazy for New Year's. I've been enjoying spending a lot of time up on my land in Virginia. Probably get the family up there to paddle around and look at ducks and not look at screens.
Great idea. With that, everybody, I want to wish everybody a happy New Year and great 2025 for all of you coming up. On behalf of Guap, Anthony, and I here at TDR, again, we want to say thank you for all the support over this past year. Happy New Year to all of you. Enjoy the night, and we'll see all of you in 2025. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.